Welcome back to another episode of Out Loud Geek, where we discuss news and views about pop culture, science fiction, fantasy, food, cooking, the outdoors, and more. It's time, once again, for another depressing dose of dismal Disney. One of Hollywood's most controversial and outspoken woke identity politics activists is none other than actress Rachel Zegler, who will be starring in Disney's live-action remake of Snow White that's currently scheduled to premiere on March 21st, 2025. And as of the time that I am recording this video, the most recent trailer that was released for the movie 3 months ago on August 9th currently has only 97,000 likes and 1.3 million dislikes, which is a ratio of 13.4 to 1 against. In all likelihood, Disney well and truly knows that this movie is going to be a massive box office flop. And part of the reason for that has to do with some very controversial comments that Rachel Zegler made about the movie at Disney's D23 fan convention in 2022 about the much-beloved original 1937 animated Snow White movie.
I just mean that it's no longer 1937, and we absolutely wrote a Snow White that is
not going to be saved by the prince.
She's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be. There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her.
Yeah.
Weird. So we didn't do that this time.
Doesn't that just sound delightful to you, folks? But in the wake of the recent US presidential election, whose outcome very much upset many in Hollywood, as I had talked about in a video that I had released last week, some also decided to express their anger on social media. So I'm sure that it won't be in any way surprising to learn that Rachel Zegler was one of those people. But before proceeding, I'd like to ask everyone to please like this video, please leave a comment, please subscribe to support this channel, and please press the bell to receive notifications. Thanks! Now, something that all human beings, regardless of who they are, where they live, or what their socio-political or religious beliefs are, at some point in their lives they will need to learn how to cope with negative situations, because negative things eventually happen to everyone. And sometimes the affected person may not have had any control over what occurred, such as the loss of a loved one who passed away, being diagnosed with a fatal disease, or being told that a major surgery is required to save the person's life. These things happen every day, and somewhere chances are right now as you are watching this video, someone is having to cope with one of the situations that I cited or something else. I know, I recently had to cope with the unexpected passing of a longtime friend over a month ago, and I'm still coping with the loss now. Not to the same extent that I was when I first learned about his death, but I think about it and I think about him every day. It is what it is, and I can't change the fact of what happened. And the same is true about this year's US presidential election. I voted, as did tens of millions of others throughout the country. And did everyone get what they wanted out of the election? No, of course not. No one ever does, because in an election, there's always a winner and one or more losers, unless only one candidate was running. That's how elections work. And just because a person voted a particular way doesn't mean that a majority voted in the same exact manner. So if the candidate or issue that you voted for didn't win the election, then the mature thing to do is to accept the outcome and move on with your life, because you can't change the outcome. It is what it is, and the sooner that you are able to move forward with your life, the easier it will be to cope with the loss. But not everyone is able to do that. And unfortunately, this year's presidential election was very heated once again, which prompted many on both sides of the aisle to express their anger on social media by attacking those who disagreed with their point of view. And when the election was over, some continued to be angry and freaked out because their candidate and point of view was rejected by a majority of US voters. Hollywood completely freaked out because it's very far left-leaning. And Donald Trump, who won a very decisive victory, was clear evidence that a majority of the US electorate not only disagrees with Hollywood's very far left point of view, they also rejected its adoption of woke identity politics and Hollywood's insistence of pushing woke identity politics messaging into everything that it produces. So everything that Rachel Zegler said about the upcoming live-action Snow White movie, including actor Peter Dinklage taking it upon himself to condemn the story due to it including dwarfs, and Disney's subsequent decision to use incredibly unattractive and unappealing CGI'd dwarf characters instead of live actors to pander specifically to him, has clearly been summarily rejected by both moviegoers and voters alike. A decisive majority voted for Donald Trump, and an even larger decisive majority rejected the first trailer for Zegler's live-action Snow White movie. And guess what? Moviegoers are also voters. These two groups are not mutually exclusive. But how did Rachel Zegler react to the election? Was she mature and respectful of people who disagree with her point of view, or did she do something else? Well, as it turns out, she did the latter. From an article posted on November 15th by The Hollywood Reporter, Disney's Snow White, Rachel Zegler, apologizes for Trump re-election reaction. And what exactly was Rachel Zegler's reaction? A user on X named Steph Annie shared screenshots of what Rachel Zegler had posted on her Instagram account in the aftermath of the presidential election. So let's take a look at what Rachel Zegler wrote. I find myself speechless in the midst of this. Another 4 years of hatred, leaning us towards a world I do not want to live in, leaning us towards a world that will be hard to raise my daughter in, leaning us towards a world that will force her to have a baby she doesn't want, leaning us towards a world that is fearful. So Rachel Zegler, who currently has no children, believes that she's going to have a baby girl and is already contemplating that this currently fictitious daughter is going to want to have an abortion someday. I had no idea that Rachel Zegler was such an accurate soothsayer who can predict future events, to include predicting that she's going to have a daughter who is then going to experience an unwanted pregnancy. That really shows what's in her mind, doesn't it? I shouldn't be this shocked, but I am. I am heartbroken for my friends who awoke in fear this morning. And I am here with you to cry, to yell, to hug, to wax poetic on how the left continues to fail us in forging a new path forward. This loss should not have been, and it certainly should not have been by so many votes. So Rachel Zegler is clearly in denial of the fact that Donald Trump won by a decisive victory. Maybe her apparent soothsaying ability didn't agree with the actual election results. And here's where she got ugly. I echo Ethel Kane's statement more than anything. May Trump supporters and Trump voters and Trump himself never know peace. Was that an appropriate thing for Rachel Zegler to say publicly about half this nation's electorate and the winning candidate? Again, her comments clearly show the kind of negative person that she truly is. But let's see what else she posted on social media. There is also a deep, deep sickness in this country that is shown in the sheer amount of people who showed up for this man who threatens our democracy. So Rachel Zegler views everyone who voted for Donald Trump as being diseased. Is that a good way for her to describe potential moviegoers for her upcoming movies? It is terrifying the number of people who stand behind what this man preaches. It is a foolish subscription to a false sense of security, of masculinity, of intelligence, of patriotism, and of humanity. So is it safe to assume that Rachel Zegler views voters' desires for security, masculinity, intelligence, patriotism, and humanity as being attributes of their diseased minds? Because she does, after all, view everyone who voted against her personal point of view as being diseased. There is no help, no counsel in any of them. I could go on. I won't. I feel sad. You probably do too. F this. So does Rachel Zegler view more than half of this nation's population as being unable to think for themselves because they don't think like she does? Did she stop and consider whether her negative comments on social media could potentially adversely impact the revenue of movies that she's starring in? She could have expressed her disappointment with the election results in a far more mature and far less toxic manner, but her woke ideological mindset won't permit that. I'll skip over the third part of her rant where she attacks Elon Musk and X and go on to the fourth and final part. Okay, that's all. Going on stage for Act 2 now and need to get off my soapbox before I get too heated. You mean she didn't think that what she had already written up to this point in her rant was overly heated? Self-righteously attacking more than half of the US electorate who voted for Donald Trump, wishing harm upon them and calling them and their desires diseased wasn't overly heated? Sending love to everyone who needs it today. So wishing hate on everyone who doesn't think like she does, but love on everyone who does. I'll skip this next part where she briefly talks about holding politicians accountable. I will love through these 4 years as best I can. F. Donald Trump. And as Steph Annie wrote on X where she shared these screenshots, this is Disney's Snow White saying all of this. Is Rachel Zegler's Instagram temper tantrum good PR for Disney? I don't think so. But let's go back to the November 15th article in The Hollywood Reporter. Rachel Zegler took to Instagram to apologize for her heated reaction last week to the re-election of Donald Trump. Then we'll skip the article's next paragraph since I already shared Zegler's angry Instagram rant. On Thursday night, the 23-year-old actress posted a new message. Quote, "Hi everyone, I would like to sincerely apologize for the election post I shared on Instagram last week. I let my emotions get the best of me. Hatred and anger have caused us to move further and further away from peace and understanding, and I am sorry I contributed to the negative discourse. This week has been emotional for so many of us, but I firmly believe that everyone has the right to their own opinion, even when it differs from my own. I am committed to contributing positively towards a better tomorrow." Unquote. I could barely read that without laughing. So here's the first thing that I am going to say about Zegler's Thursday night apology. Bullshit. It's so blatantly obvious that she didn't write this herself, which will become more obvious when I show you a screenshot of it. Her 4-part rant from last week didn't use any capitalization, and some of the grammar was wrong. But this Thursday night apology post has perfect capitalization and perfect grammar. So I do not in any way believe that she actually wrote the apology herself. The apology was more than likely written by Disney for her to post as a way to try and undo part of the damage that Rachel Zegler continues to inflict upon herself and on that ghastly upcoming live-action Snow White movie that she stars in. And since it's so likely that Disney wrote this apology for Zegler to post, when did Disney ever say that everyone, including Gina Carano, is entitled to their own opinion? Oh wait, Disney fired Gina Carano because they didn't like things that she was posting on social media, and Gina Carano never once attacked individuals in the same harsh and obvious manner that Rachel Zegler did by wishing harm on everyone who didn't vote like she did. This is Disney's hypocritical double standard in plain view. And I also hope that Gina Carano and her attorneys can use this in Carano's wrongful termination lawsuit against Disney. So there you have it, folks. Rachel Zegler is a poster child for Hollywood wokeness, which, in my own opinion, only aided Donald Trump winning the US presidential election, thanks in part to Hollywood driving away the same voters, who are also moviegoers and streaming service viewers, through its excessive wokeness. Thanks for watching today, and a huge thanks to each and every one of you who has subscribed to support this channel. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, X, and Blue Sky by clicking on the links in the description. Until next time, this is Out Loud Geek.